It's weird coming back here. I don't know if it's a worse feeling coming back here with everyone that knew him, and, you know, I tell people what I'm working on this documentary for, and everybody instantly looks sad, or being back at college, or being places where no one knew him.
He was, and I hope he forgives me for this, sweet and kind. I think that you could ask anything of Jeff, and if he could do it, he would do it for you. Every once in a while, I meet a student who I know, if I got into trouble here for some reason, say a big hulking senior came after me and decided to throw a fire extinguisher at me, that Jeff he'd get my back. He'd have my back.
I always thought of him as a gentle giant because he was such a big boy. He could be a real pussycat around you, but he had a sarcastic edge that I very much enjoyed. You know, we went rounds a few times about things, but for the most part, I very much liked Jeff. I just felt like that he needed to exert himself a little bit more. And not only academically, but with some of the kids in the classroom. Jeff kind of like took some crap from him sometimes, and I wish sometimes that he would have, pushed back a little bit harder.
He was very proud of the fact that he got through high school without ever studying. That was his big pride.
I remember that.
Yeah, he always would tell us that. And he would always give everybody a hug, and he made people feel good. He was a good friend. He was a good boy. He just really, very helpful. He'd do anything for you. And he was just so kind. He was very sweet to everybody. Yeah, I like that about him.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Jeff was a really friendly guy. He was a really big guy, and he had a really big heart. I noticed that he really cared a lot about his friends, and probably more than he did himself.
And then he was always with his friends. You know, he always had, it was never just Jeff. It was Jeff and, you know, if it was him and the guys walking down the hall at school, or, you know, piling out of a van full of his buddies, you know, it was always Jeff with.
From about January of my junior year on, I talked to Jeff a lot more than I had before. I was just going through a really tough time with some of my other relationships and friendships, and I would call him almost every day after school. When you asked him for advice, he wasn't afraid to tell you that you were an idiot. And I love that about him. And my junior prom was coming up, and I didn't have anyone to go with, and I asked him if he would go with me. And he kind of teased me about it a little bit, and then he did say yes. Around the end of March was my birthday, and I invited Jeff to come to the party I was having in the last weekend in March. But, you know, my party starts and we cut the cake, and pretty much everyone was there, and Jeff wasn't there. And I tried texting him for a while, and I called him a couple times, and he didn't answer. And then finally he sent me a text that basically said he was fighting with his parents, and there was one phrase in his text that I will never forget, and that was, "I am in hell." So I let him know, you know, if he needed to talk to me, or if there was any way that I could be there for him, that I would. And he didn't respond to that. I thought maybe his parents had taken his phone or something like that. Then on Thursday, very, very early in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, my mom answered a call from one of my ex-boyfriends, and he said that something was wrong and that he needed to talk to me. She woke me up, handed the phone to me, and he said, Jeff shot himself. And my mind went completely blank. I just laid there and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't process that. As far as we knew at that time, we all thought that Jeff was either in the hospital or on his way to the hospital. As far as we knew, he was still alive. There was a lot of confusion. And I had this feeling, even though we thought Jeff was alive and in the hospital, I just had this feeling that he wasn't going to make it. So I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and my best friend's mother was bringing her over to my house. Just before my best friend got to my house, I got a call from my pastor's wife and she was talking to me and kind of consoling me, and then she said, "We just heard the body is on its way to the morgue." And that was when I found out that he was dead.
When did you hear that he had passed away?
Probably soon after it happened, because I know it was going around the school pretty good.
And what was your reaction to that?
Horrified, absolutely horrified. I just never knew what kind of demons were after him. If I had known, I would have been praying for him.
I came to school that morning and I was told that he had shot himself, and my first instinct was his poor mother, and then I thought about his best friend, Paul, and felt really, really bad about not being able to talk to Paul because, you know, there's guilt from the survivors that is so extremely hard to handle, and I just felt really horrific about what had happened. I felt sad because I would not see Jeff anymore, but I also felt sympathy for the family and what they must be going through.
Someone came to school and said that he killed himself. And I couldn't believe it. It was just incredible to me. I thought, oh my, no. This was a very sad moment. I was so shocked. I find that incredible. It's just like you're here one moment and then you're gone, and I was very sad. Very sad to know that.
The next day at work, our secretary come out, because at that point we still didn't know whether Jeff had passed away or not. But our secretary come out and said that she got a phone call that Jeff had passed. And that was, hated to hear that.
One of the questions that people wanted to ask but were hesitant to ask me is if I was still going to prom.
I was worried for you. I know you wanted to be strong and do the promenade by yourself. But one of the things that your dad and I would talk about was I didn't think you were strong enough to carry that by yourself. But I was very, very thankful that it worked out, that you had somebody to support you.
When I decided to go ahead and go to prom, people somehow saw that as brave. I don't think it was brave.
To do something like that is to shoulder the whole burden by yourself, carry it in a very lonely place because nobody else is there really at that moment for you. So yeah, that's brave.
I got a silk rose and I spray painted it black, and I put that in my bouquet in honor of Jeff. After Grand March is when they always announce the King and Queen and the Princess, which is elected by the junior class. I'm sitting there and they're announcing, and the 2012 prom princess is, and then they said my name. And I was shocked. I was surprised. I couldn't figure out why. I found out that most of my junior class, if not all, had decided together to vote for me because it was the only thing they could do together as a group for me to show that they appreciated what they saw as bravery in me still going to prom after what I'd been through. And getting that crown was nice just by itself, but knowing that they meant that as that sort of gesture made it mean so much more than it ever could have. And, you know, obviously I would give that up in a heartbeat to bring Jeff back. But since I can't, it was probably the most touching thing any group of people has ever done for me. Because it wasn't about a crown. It was about everyone offering me support and acknowledging what had happened. And I don't think it was just for me. I think it was kind of for Jeff too. At least to me it was.
The only thing that gets you through is holding on to God. And I have found out that He is always faithful.
For me, it was just, you know, get through another day, and this too shall pass, but don't forget this, you know, and hopefully if you see someone who you think is okay, you know, be a little bit more intrusive into their life.
I drive past his house every day, and I think about him. And I think, you know, I don't know why. I can't understand why, so.
And we'll always miss him. But we remember him. And that's how you get through, is you remember. And every day you should say goodbye a little more because you remember a little less.
I remember coming home from work, and you'd be on the phone. Who you on the phone with? Jeff. And then all of a sudden that stopped. Mm-hmm. And I missed that. Mm-hmm. And I know you had to, but I'm just saying, and that was a loss, you know.
I remember his smile, his quirky, witty, ornery humor, his hugs, his laugh, his great big belly-filled, room-filling laugh.
Bye, Jeffy.